Good afternoon, everybody. Happy Saturday. The UKL Saturday show back on the air after week 4 of spring 2026. My name is Trajan, joined by Rob as usual on the weekend. And we have a special guest this week, Teatime, coach of Absolved. Welcome to the Saturday show, my friend.
Thank you for having me, guys. Pleasure.
I'm sure it is. It's about to be because we're going to talk a little bit about Absolved's rocketing to the top of the standings, leaving everyone else in the dust for now. We'll also talk a little bit about yourself and your history and journey in the UK scene as someone who has been around for a long old time at this point. It seems like joined the scene kind of similar time that I did back in sort of 2019, maybe even earlier than that. So there's plenty to dig into there. But let's talk about the UKL first. Let's talk about the actual league. And we can start with Absolved. We'll start at the top alphabetically as well. 11-1 now at the top of the standings. And Rob, we kind of previously, I specifically had been like, this Absolved team should be really good. It seems like they should be really good, but for some reason, we're just not quite there. And then as soon as I said that, they arrived there. They arrived there very rapidly and started clapping everybody. And now at the top of the standings. So Rob, I asked kind of last week, are we ready to say like who the best team in the league is? Are we ready yet? Are we ready now? Yeah, it's a good time to be on. Yeah.
A little bit.
I think you might be muted, Rob. The chat's popping off about how muted you are, so. Okay, so while he fixes
The whole
that, we
time.
didn't. Sadly, this wasn't an intentional thing, chat. We did not intend to actually cut his feed. I know that's what you guys want, but he's
Well,
running the stream, so it's his fault.
I think Rob was mentioning our game versus Bandits at the beginning of the
Mhm.
split.
What?
Probably
I'm
our
back.
first hiccup. Our
Is
first
he, is
hiccup
he, is
of the
he in?
split.
I'm
Is
back.
he now in?
I'm back. I don't know what
Okay,
it
chat,
did.
chat can confirm if Rob is in fact in, but let's, yeah.
I'm back. I no. I don't understand because it was set to my microphone. I just re-clicked it to my microphone that it already said, and it worked. I'm blaming OBS. This isn't my fault.
That's
Get out of
OBS,
here,
my
Ollie.
bad. Yep, that's fine.
I was gonna say I saw the Bandits game. I saw the Nuclear Vikings game at the beginning. I had a bit of worries after the Nuclear Vikings game, just because there was a few moments in it where it's just like I'm watching a Rumble solo kill, and then the Kale has 3 kills, and then he's down like 20
Yeah.
and things like this.
Bit of nerves.
And I
Bit of
saw like
nerves, always fun for
rhythm,
nerves.
like
Well,
I don't know if
talk
Kamikaze's
about-
right, but he flew in as Corky in mid lane. I remember seeing that as well and being like, "Wow, they're like,
That was a classic.
what have they done to the rhythm? He's never done this before. He likes to sit back and hit people as they run into him." And then suddenly it was like I don't know, you just all just sort of locks in, and every game I think has been super clean.
It seemed like a warm up sort of situation, and
And
then
Well,
I'm most impressed with your jungler.
against,
Your jungler's really impressed me actually, really impressed me.
against Nuclear Vikings, like I have to, like we're gonna glaze them a little bit later, I'm sure, but like we have to respect their top side, and they definitely put some damage on us. And we have obviously got Soimu and Upkey who are new to the scene. Maybe they had a little bit of nerves, maybe not, I don't know. But Josh Kang and Elling definitely put the pressure on us in that first series. And then in the second one against Bandits, first game was sort of what we expected to perform. Second game, I think draft was a bit of an issue. maybe my responsibility that one. So that was our first hiccup, really, of the split with the loss. But after that, we've been smooth sailing, really. I mean, we've just been doing what we need to do and getting through it. So I've been happy with the boys overall.
Yeah, I mean, as one should be, and I think Bandits especially, we haven't seen them on the stream for a hot minute. I think we're gonna see them on the stream a couple more, if not next week, then at least once in the week after. Then this is the other team that I'm looking at and have been looking at to go like, okay, low key, these guys probably should be a real threat. They've taken the game off you guys, admittedly early split as well, but they have now since put aside most of their problems and are racking up the wins.
Yeah.
We have 4 teams currently on 7 wins, and then Absolved with 11. So.
Yeah.
Slight schedule fluctuations where some teams haven't played the same number of games, but ultimately there's 4 teams standing right behind Absolved who would love a chance to try and knock you guys off, or at least take that top 2 or at least top 4 for an upper half of playoffs. So a lot of teams fighting for convention up there. But so this new top side for Absolved that you mentioned, Simon and Uki, like Uki especially, Rob is very impressed. We're all very impressed with that, and a very kind of active, dynamic jungler that we've seen. So quite a few of these guys, to be honest. We've got a lot of like new, flashy junglers that have come in. But for Soimu, what's kind of been the the journey there, as we started as sort of loopy light, and then we were loopy 2.0, and where are we now? Like where's
Now we're
Soimu landed?
Soimu. We're Soimu
What's your
Unleashed.
vision? Now it's Soimu. Now it's just
Soimu
Soimu.
Unleashed.
He's owned his own tag.
The team as a whole, we like obviously we started off with Emil and Bean Lord from our last split, and we wanted to keep that core super intact, and then managed to bring in Rhythm, which obviously finished off our LTR requirements per se. And then after that, it was just filling in the best jungle top we could find. And Soimu for sure has been like outstanding in terms of like the roster construction. He fulfilled everything we needed as a player, and like he's just been going from stride to stride. Like he's found his role in the team. He's like he's sort of, I don't know how to put it, but so consistent in every game, every scrim, every practice, and he's been really, really, really stepping up, and that's been a big difference for us. Obviously, Utki, he's Turkish Canyon, little firecracker in the jungle role. Likes to get stuff done. Gets like a lot of our kind of initiative things going. So really happy with him as well. Obviously, we'll see. He maybe have a trip or two here along the way, but like he's been performing really fantastic, and I just want to keep him improving, make sure he can hit his potential. Because with a lot of these mechanical junglers, like you mentioned, coming into the league, a lot of them have this capability to make big mistakes, and Udki is like we're working really hard with him to kind of like tether that on where is your limit. Like we don't want to hamper you, we don't want to take away what makes you good in the first place, but we've got to like make sure that we know where our limits are and what we need to be doing on the map at all times. So I'm really happy with the boys on top side. Like Soimu Aki have been like I think they get overshadowed a lot by Emil and Rhythm in terms of like the fact people know them more, people know the rest of the squad better, and that's not to say Emil and Rhythm don't deserve the praise they get, but Soimu Aki have been really like the kind of components that bring everything together, and I'm really happy with those guys.
I just think I think as well that like when we were doing last week the sort of mid-split kind of ish like ultimate team fantasy thing. I think that the reason why Utki was in my head for jungle, but as you said, when there's like Emil and Rhythm, they always get out like sort of overshadowed. Do you think he's performed? I mean, you obviously going to say he's the best jungler of the split so far. I think that's I mean, you're the coach. You can't really say anything else. Do you sit there and like when you say about having a solo queue jungler? Are there any teams you have looked at you've either faced or going to face where you're like, okay, this jungle matchup in particular, like I've got to put extra focus on it in draft, or are there any players in particular? Like, I think we're gonna get to other teams later, but I'm interested to hear what you think. Because we know what Emil can do and what Rhythm and Beanlord can do, but when you have these newer players, like who can you really like? Who do you look at and go, they're going to be a threat to my new guys who come in?
We touched on them a little bit, and it was our second game, so we didn't really have we didn't have the most time to kind of be ready for it. But Clicker for sure is the jungler that kind of we have on our radar as like the person that can contest Udki. Obviously, like. It depends on what champs Clicker's on. I think that makes a big difference.
If he gets, what's that champion he's really good at? I can't remember. What's the one?
Because of the D, may have left the opening draft. Whoopsie. But also at the same time, like when we saw Utki against Nat, for example, in Anari, I can't criticize Utki. His Aatrox performances were fantastic. So if we can keep that momentum and keep building on that, those performances, then I think it shouldn't be any problem whatsoever, really. So happy with the boys.
With the boys. Okay, so we've kind of mentioned them already. Let's just bounce forward onto Nuke. This is kind of one of the biggest things that happened last week. Was Nuke finally got their first game in series win. They're now at 4 and X because of the 2 guaranteed wins. But in that little scrap for sort of 7, 8, 9 that is very critical, that is the getting into playoffs and critically not taking the 1 available relegation slot, those getting 2 wins especially is very, very impactful over one of your kind of opponents in Verdant Academy.
Okay, I'm gonna chuck it up. I'm going to chuck up the draft. My apologies.
Teatime has some specific points that he would like to, some targeted glazing that he'd like to offer for Nuke here.
I'm just going to apologise. My face is again. My face is on this. I've realised there's 2 Robs, and that is too much Rob.
I grabbed these screenshots like so that we could get the raw reaction.
Yeah, it does kind of look like no one really trusts the Verdant draft from this screenshot.
This is game 2, but we'll start with game 2, I guess.
Yeah,
but yeah,
we'll start with game 2, I guess. But the reason why I have so much targeted glazing for Nuclear Vikings is because obviously Rise took a game off Broad, and at that point you think, God, like the Rise versus Nuclear Vikings game was meant to decide a lot of what was going to happen at the end of this season. And I think that the fact that Nuclear Vikings were able to get this 2-0 against Verdant is really like positive for them as a team, because Verdant obviously beat Rise 2-0, so they were in a good position. So Nuclear Vikings kind of saved their season. And we've spoken a little bit about, everyone knows Josh Kang's having a great tournament. Shush is super solid in top lane. Elling is like this early game enabler for Josh Kang, so that mid jungle 2v2 is really strong. But the thing I wanted to glaze specifically about this game and this series was how solid Hagelbodge and Scooby were, picking Ash Seraphine 1-2.
Hugler Boy. I have to do it. I have to hit Hugler Boy. We've been given the
I can
pronunciation
show
videos,
both
so
Ash. I can flip between the two drafts. I can flip between the two of them.
Both games completely blinding Ash Seraphine. Both games winning bot lane. Both games adding utility for the rest of the team that we know is strong, know is good. And both games coming out on top of the bot lane, which is not something we've seen that much out of Nuclear Vikings, and where perhaps one of their biggest weaknesses is. So for them to be able to do this against a Blitzcrank, an Ezreal Karma, and come out with really good results, just made so much difference in this series. And if we can see more of that, I'm not sleeping on if we come up against the Nuclear Vikings, and that's saying something,
Did you think they made playoffs at this? I mean, this performance here, because obviously, I mean, I got to watch it from multiple angles on the day, on the desk and on the cast. I think that they looked like I'd heard from my contacts, otherwise known as their assistant coach, they were like ready to take down Verdant. They were ready to like smack them down. They said, we've had the hard games. We think this team are not easy, but they are they are so 2-0able.
This is a beatable team.
And like we're going to smack them around. And I honestly, other than a few slip-ups a bit later, I would kind of say they kind of did. Early on. Are they a team that, because they've got Rise a bit later, if they win that series or go, there's a good chance. I mean, if they beat Rise 2-0, which is a possibility, I think that we're the universe we live in, they're in playoffs. I think they're just in playoffs. Should we be more concerned about them if their bot lanes start really showing improvement or willingness to play these kind of lanes?
I think if they can be this stable and they can enable the Josh Kang, Elling, Shush guys to really carry without the map exploding, then they do have a really good chance, because they do have that good early game, that good tempo that they play with, because Josh Kang has a lot of aggression. Yeah. And because Rise beat Broad, the reason why I highlight this game is because if they didn't win this, they'd be bottom of the table. And even if they went 1-1 versus Rise in the final game, they'd be out.
Yeah.
So they had to win this. They absolutely had to 2-0 this game. If they didn't, their season's more or less on the dunzo, unless they 2-0 Rise, right? So I think this is a really important game, and I was really happy to see what Nuclear Vikings did.
Was it just also, because on the day I was a bit worried about, there were some points I want to make about Verdant, because I think that's a team that's an interesting discussion point as well. Obviously, we saw them sort of match up. Do you think there was some things here where, how to put it, like there were some of the drafting things, you can see my face being pulled here with the Yone lock-in, and do you sit there and look at it and go,
reaction to the Yone lock-in?
Do you think this Yone lock-in is like for example stuff like this? Are you sometimes with Verdant, I think they start off and you're like, okay, I can see what they're cooking, I can see what they're putting in the kitchen, and then I think on the second draft as well, it's like, I feel like they leave, for example, leaving open Shush Gwen, which is one of his top 2 champs along with Gnar. Do you think this is a situation where Verdant have some ideas and they can't quite put it together because they've sorted their jungler out and they've sorted their support? Do they need more time? Do they have the time? Do you think do you think Nuclear Vikings are a bigger threat now than Verdant are?
I think Nuclear Vikings might be a bigger threat than Verdant. I think
the
Verdant is struggling to maybe find what their identity really is. You can see in these 2 drafts, you've got the Victor, and then the Yone. We're kind of not sure what we're doing. We picked the Yone. I mean, if you go back to the first draft, we picked you're picking the Yone into the Wukong Talia. This is not a Yone game. You cannot. It's very difficult to navigate. Maybe because you have the Rumble, you feel like you have to pick Yone, but I don't necessarily think it's the case. And if it is the case, then something went wrong in the pre-prep, because you picked Yone anyway without banning some champs that make it impossible for him to play. So, Verdant, if they fix their problems, if they can find their identity, which I believe is out there. I don't want to give them too many hints, tell them what it is, but it exists. Then they can definitely bounce back, but they need to figure it out, and they need to figure it out quick because they've got no time left now. They're running out of time.
Yeah, I mean, they had this like initial start momentum from the 2-0 against Rise.
Yeah.
That seemed like they finally knew how to play the game and they were able to like win early and late in different situations. But it seems like now with the support change and a jungle change, like the ground is so unstable under them that I think it's very hard to put together any sort of comeback. You kind of need to go even further into like, let's destabilize this with like influentic picks in the draft, but they need to work like with the draft at the same time, or I don't know. It's hard to kind of see what the route out is at this point. Sadly, in the split, there is a chance still. We still have a few weeks of competition, and they only need to make top 8. There is one relegation slot, as we say. Top 8 goes to playoffs from top and upper and lower bracket, and only 9th is being relegated, and Natives is already forfeited the split. So the bar is low, but the situation is becoming tricky. And the one boon for them here is that Rise are, if anything, even more kind of in the bin right now. They are Verdant have a 2-0 over Rise. They have the head-to-head against this critical person. They have 1 win over them as well. They have 4 wins. Rise only have 3. And Rise is also now running out of time to try and put something right here. When they got their first win versus Broad, they got their government-mandated 1-1 versus Broad and Friends, and that was all good, and it looked good, that win. And they've been a team, again, that we know the quality is there. Demo in the top lane is continuing to show, honestly, more and more kind of 1v1 talent, and he's able to stand up against Wormsoil and some of these other really strong top laners. We know what Jamsu can do, we know what Ketsuo can do, but somehow we're still not putting it together, and it seems like they're almost snatching defeat from the jaws of victory at times. And they are now in the dire position because they don't have the Verdant head-to-head.
I need to point out Verdant's schedule here, because I will tell you their next 3 matches, and these are the only 3 matches they have left. They have Inari, they have Gucci, and then they have Broad, okay? So if Verdant aren't able to pick up a win in any of those games, and then Nuclear Vikings go 1-1 with Rise, then Verdant are out.
Yeah.
So it's out of their hands unless they can pull up a win against.
They need an Inari win. I think Frisky, the coach, has said to me that he believes Inari is like the quote unquote like the sort of
fraud.
cuckoo in the nest, like the fraud at the top, where there is like a lot of 7-1 teams, and like we have started to see what could be that, right? Because they had a very easy schedule to start, and they did lose their last series, I believe. So, or at least 1-1 bit. Like they didn't look as good in their last scene against a tougher opponent. So there's a chance that Inari were a little boosted by schedule and that Verdant can try and capitalize. But again, we need to try and like find a way to destabilize Inari, because Inari have been, if anything, the most like, we're going to destabilize the draft with our comfort picks and draft strange things and Karthus jungle and all that stuff. And so and Caston. So Verdant and Inari could be a very fascinating draft phase, but I don't know who's necessarily gonna come out on top at that point.
My opinion is that Inari are not frauds. I think they're very strong. I think they're good. I know. So we played them last. We toured them, and it looked comfortable. But a lot of prep went into that, and I think Inari
it's simply Absolved.
We were ready for Inari to be No, I wouldn't go that far. But I think like we put a lot of respect and a lot of prep into Inari. We looked at their games. They do play good. They play well, and they have a clear identity, and they know what they're doing. And I think I think that's where the battle between Verdant and Inari will be fought. Is if Inari can't figure out what their identity is, I think they're going to be in big trouble.
I think, like with you're also just pointing out Rise's schedule as well. They've still got to face Nuclear Vikings, which will be a bit of a banger, because that is like, as you say, it goes 1-1, it changes the dynamic. If a team goes 2-0, that also massively changes the relegation, which is, weirdly enough, usually you talk about the top of the table a lot. We've still got to see you guys versus Chi, and then like you versus Broad, and then you like figure out why Broad don't 2-0 anyone, and all these things. Like all these things have to be cleared up, but relegation is almost cleared up.
Yeah.
Like, is the thing to look at, because it is with one slot. And I still think, as you said, like, Verdant is in that discussion in those 3 teams. It's Rise, Verdant, Nuclear Vikings. Rise still have to face you guys. They still got to face Inari. And I hear rumblings that are, like, in scrims, Rise... I know scrimbucks, but like, Rise play quite well in scrims from what I've heard. I've heard they're quite disappointed with their stage performance, because in scrims they seem to come together. It's just something that happens when they play in an official where they're a bit more scared. They don't... Like, you can kind of see glimpses of it. Like in the Broad game, you can see glimpses of where like they could play quite well, I think. And then they've still Nuclear Vikings is the final one alongside the Bandits, which is another interesting team, which we obviously actually haven't seen very much. Like for Rise, like low key, they only need to pick up maybe like one. If they go 1-1 versus Nuke, and then they pick up one more, like another win somewhere else, which I think is more likely than Verdant's, because Verdant do have to face, I think, 3 really good teams.
Yeah, they do.
You start discussing Verdant hitting the bomb. I think it's such a weird dynamic that we're seeing opening up, because I think only a week ago, would have said, I think Verdant with the Rise win are probably clear at the moment, because those are the ones they're competing with. And Nuclear Vikings, we saw like Josh Kang killing everyone, and then obviously he's playing Lee Sin, so he can't actually carry the game completely without his bot lane.
Well, Rise did really well against Rod. I think Kier on Vi had a really good game. I think not an OTP demo. He had a really solid game, and I definitely think Rise were looking good against Brod. Brod, I think though, if your draft ends up with Beartree on Galio, maybe something went wrong. You need to figure out what happened and how to avoid that in the future, maybe.
They put him back on R in the next game, right? I think
Yeah,
like, okay, right, let's put him back on something.
Let's just make him play not a proper champ, but if you're playing all low range with Galio, you're like, how play game at some point?
How can play?
Well, I mean, Brod's a funny team, right? Because I think they have a lot of talent, right? No one can question that. But have they got too much talent? Someone needs to take a step back. And the question is Beartree the guy who needs to take a step back in the draft and in the kind of go into that more supportive role, or do you think it should be someone else?
Yeah.
It's kind of, I don't know, because like we used to see like in the Rise Anarchy and Tweet days, Anarchy was the one normally taking a step back. He was playing Yorick, and he was playing like weak side top, or not necessarily weak side top laners, but he was playing top laners you can leave on their own. Like he was playing guys you don't need to invest in the laning phase, and then Tweak theoretically can dedicate his time elsewhere to try and mid jungle with Beartree, which is a great 2v2. We've seen them lean into that before, and then getting Sin ahead on a carry like on a Varus or a Kai'Sa. Like these are reliable win conditions. However, it does feel to me like specifically in that last series, like Anarchy was struggling more than I would have expected him to. I mean, potentially just props to Demo for again, who then like performed well against Wormsoul, and this guy is definitely legitimate. This guy's a strong top laner, but I think Anarchy looked a lot more comfortable, a bit more competitive last split, and maybe isn't holding up as well post 2025 somehow. So it's I don't know if we're just not finding the best way to get the meta out for him, or if he's actually struggling to perform in the same way. But I don't know, it just doesn't seem like he's hitting the same as he did.
I think
out topside.
That game 2, by the way, in that Rise Brod best of 2 series. Again, I don't know what we're calling them nowadays, but it's like Brod at some point, like early on, Rise looked pretty good as well. Like it was like Jam Secure were like match teaming up with each other, walking into the jungle. It was like the Vibram. And then at some point, it was like Brod's members like gained sentience, and they were like, "Well, if we like pushed mid as Sivir, and then just walked to a side lane, and then suddenly they were just killing Ketsuo on cooldown, and it was like, oh my god, win condition unlocked." And like it's like it's suddenly like I don't know what it was. It seemed like, because again I think Akka's early on in the game had a hard timer bar. He went from like 0-3-2, and they were like, "What if we just killed them?" And then he went to like 0-3-13, and it was I think Brod still have a little bit of a way to go, but I am confident just because like having. It's not just because I would describe myself as somewhat friends with some of the players, at least somewhat acquaintances.
I don't know if they'd say the same.
I wouldn't. I don't think. I mean, that's what I was trying to say. I don't think they'd say anything close to the same. But I think like Akka's, he's quite a smart player. He always was quite a smart player in top lane, and you can apply a lot of what he thought in terms of macro concepts in support. So it's just like I think unlocking that part of what there should be their gameplay. That's why I had them quite high early on, is because they have a lot of experience, and they had like a moving Akka support wasn't a surprise. Him and Sin have been duoing up to like 600 LP, or whatever it was, 700 LP, and like a duo that can actually reach that quickly with a role swap, you'd think would be pretty good.
I have no doubt. My faith has not wavered in the Brod playoff glow up. The glow up is coming, and it always.
I think it's in the works.
It's like a G2. It's like a G2 thing, right? They go 7th in regular season, and they it's final. Maybe that's the case. So we'll see.
Yeah, I think that they are gonna get a handle on how they want to play early games specifically, and like how they want to cover off like lanes and how they want to use their lanes properly. They have all the pieces. They have all the tools. I think they're just not quite necessarily putting them together, or haven't decided how to put them together the right way. And yeah, they have more than enough wins. They've got they're 4-4 in played games because of the 1-1 thing, and given Nuke, Verdant, and Rise in the situation they are, there's basically almost no risk of them actually not making playoffs, and then it's just a matter of using that time as best you can. And I think as we go into best of series as well, we are going to start to see that affect these teams, and it's just a different ball game to try and navigate that. And I think Broad would be favored in a situation like that against some of our other teams. So yeah, they're gonna get there. I'm pretty sure. It's just we're still waiting to see the outcome of this shift. We're still transitioning. It seems like.
Because there's a few teams. There's a few teams like we can't really talk about Chi too much. We haven't seen it because they had like a Nators game that obviously didn't happen. So then like they're 7-1, but like was a 2-0. They should be fine. Bandits are the same. Like we can't really talk about.
I was saying before, like we're first place, but we're tied with Good Chi essentially. I mean, I have to just like the score, the number of games affects the standings.
Yeah.
Essentially, we're both 11-1 or 7-1 or whatever you want to say. Like, I think the deciding on the first place is our series against Skidchu, which is coming up. Unless they've fumbled the ball before then, we'll see. They've got to play versus the Bandits, which is a big game.
Yeah, and there is going to be a change in Gucci coming down the pipe anyway, so we're not necessarily going to see the exact same team that went 7-1. And that's just the way it is. But like they have like a deep bench, and I think Gucci are still going to be fine, and that their core roster concept is very strong still. So I don't think that they're going to necessarily become weaker.
One of the games to watch though is this Bandits versus Gucci game, because I think that the Bandits roster, when you look at it with Gabby, obviously my boy Gabby, Gabby, JB, and Clicker, you got a really solid core of players that are really it's like
when that team works. Yeah. I still think that roster is like my favorite roster in terms of like types of players we've put together as a 5-stack. I think they've just done a really good job there, and it's just about whether they can get it.
Could see the Bandits in finals.
Elevated.
Could see the Bandits in finals.
That's a good called shot, but like I think it's genuinely possible. Like we just have that level of quality across the top half of the league right now. And again, I'm looking at the standings, and there's just like. Bulldog just chilling.
That's a team I want to ask about. Actually,
this is a very interesting one.
We need to talk about the dogs.
We saw Bulldog. Dumpster. I don't know if that's the right word. Like they put Rise into what could be an early grave for their split.
They folded them up, right? They're rolling up.
And what do you because Bulldog's like an interesting roster. It's put together in a way like Wormsoil, like I was like, where did this guy come from? I was, when I was coaching, I was tracking low pro. Suddenly, there's a guy called Tarnished on there, and I'm like, who the hell is this top laner? So there's like Wormsoils out there. You've got like Pivotal, who we all know is. I think Pivotal's really good. He's an Eastern European player, so he plays Sejuani, he plays Skarner. Like that's what he does. He is inspired regen, if it was a FIFA terminology. And then you think
it's just solid player. Really
solid player. Like and then their bot lane, like Yastrom, he flashes forward a couple times, but he generally looks good. Kakashi. I've never known how to rate him because when he was on at the Vertex roster, he had a lot of players where it was like, how do you rate Kakashi versus like when they had Nectarios and Sharpie and all these?
Has definitely revealed that he had more to give compared to that roster. I think when he's been put in a better, stronger environment, his level has been revealed to be higher than I think it maybe was. I think like especially because I think Yastrom, the struggles that have come out that bot lane, in my opinion, have come a little bit from Yashim's decision making, sometimes being a bit suspicious. Now, he doesn't do it like as egregiously. It's not anything like Nuke's bot lane in terms of struggles, and like they're improving on that regard. But I think Magpie is largely kind of taken along for the ride when those things go bad, and I think that his decision making seems pretty good. I like the way he moves around the map. I like the way he team fights. I think that he's like a very, very solid element to that roster.
But we haven't said one player's name, and that's Faulty.
Faulty.
And like he kind of put Ketsu in a spliff. That guy kind of folded him up. He kind of folded him up a little bit.
This should have been the way that Rise win this game. And it went completely the opposite.
I need to say something about Faulty because obviously we played against him. We gave him Heimerdinger both games. He didn't have his best series. He had a bit of a rough one. And then in the series he just played, I think Faulty was honestly one of the better players in the game.
Yeah.
Like, he stepped up to a new level. He's obviously bounced back. He said, I don't need Heimerdinger anymore. And he played as Nico, and he carried. Like, he did a really, really good job. So I was happy with Faulty. I do think, though, Bulldog, forget Faulty Heimerdinger, Wormsoil Olaf, you got to ban that. Come on, I'm sorry, the whole league.
Every time he plays it, he just runs through enemy teams and kills them.
What is going on here? Is someone else watching the same games I am? No offense, guys. Come on, ban it.
It's because it looked like they'd given it over, and then with the Kasante and demo was like, had like a gank and a solo kill. It's like, wow, they've solved Wormsaw Cassante, and that was the last we saw of that thought thread for the rest of the series. Like, he then just started solo killing on repeat, smashing team fights, picked it again, and did it again. It was like, okay.
Wormsaw Cassante is good, right? But it's like this champ has only got a certain limit of what he can do. It cannot do like Cassante can only do so much. I think Olaf has this like if you put an enchanter next to this champ, you can 2v5. Like why this gap champ?
I will say Rise did give him free act. Like in a number of fights, there were moments where I see Wormsaw Cassante doing things to DDD without having to run through the entire enemy team first, and I question if if you give him the angle, he takes it. And there's been a lot of moments, but I agree.
Times,
like ban it second phase. Like just ban it. Don't let him have it.
Rise had like okay, we're going to draft a disengaged kiteback comp to deal with your Olaf because it's a dive comp and you've got like Olaf Oriana. Like, fine, like, okay, we are going to draft an Azir and like Varus with poke Varus and
Braum,
here and all stuff, and Braum, right? And like when we were in the draft, we were like, you were like, this is the most obvious Braum angle of all time, and they didn't ban it. Instant Jamsu Braum lock, and it looked so good, and it was all working great, and they had like. First team fight, they forget that they're a kite bang comp and they try and dive and die, and they go, oh, hang on, that's not what our comp does. Second fight, they kite back and they get like Flash, Olaf, Oriana triple ulted, and they still win the fight because it's just like stylistically, it worked. That's how it should work, and that's how they should play. But then the next fight, they go back to being on the front line again, and it seems like when they played the comp to the comp, it worked, and you could see what the point was. But if you give Wormsaw the ticket in, if you walk up to the dragon and you haven't got flank wards, and you get like Rel ulted by Magpie and you don't do the homework, then like Wormsaw is going to completely 1v9.
That I will say that game. There's moments with how they play. It was very execution based. How they were positioning and around Dragon gave multiple moments for Bulldog to actually form a pincer around them. There's another moment as well. The team fight that decides the game. Both their ADC and mid lane have blue ward up, and they watch Rel wander around. And instead of and they don't like, blue ward her out. She's gone. Yeah. She's not on my screen. Object permanence. Object permanence. Like the Kakashi Rel disappear. Where it go?
Yeah.
And I think like maybe there's like a lot of execution based mistakes that you see coming out from Rise as well, which is like
I think.
But Bulldog played well. Like I will say Bulldog played well. Like we have to give Bulldog the flowers on that.
Yeah, that they pushed their way through the opportunities that were given to them. But Rise had, I think, a composition that demonstrated it could deal with that strategy, and they showed that it could work, but they just did not set up properly, and they did not execute right in the moment. And Bulldog were happy to just be like, okay, well, we'll just mow you down then. That's fine.
I just want to ask a question for Teatime, because obviously you guys are sat at the top. Who do you think right now? Because like if we look at who could be in discussion for top 4, it's you guys, obviously. Chi, Bulldog, Inari, Bandits, Broad. What do you choose? Because obviously top 4 get upper bracket to start, and they get basically 1 life, and then the bottom 5 to 8 get only or start in the lower bracket. Who are you right now looking at? Because we've kind of discussed all these teams that we can discuss, because we can't really discuss Chi and Bandits. We haven't seen them enough. Who are you looking at as like the definitive top 4? Obviously, yourselves are included.
Are we talking regular season, or are we talking by the end of playoffs?
Let's start with the regular season, because that's the one that kind of gives you that extra lifeline. There's yourself.
I got a DQ Broad. Broad are not making top 4 because we're gonna 2-0 them. So that already puts them in the second half of the table.
Okay.
So, sorry, Broad. You made too many mistakes. You got to climb out of the lower bracket. Yeah. I'm not writing them off from playoffs, but they've got to climb. And then I think you have Gucci, Inari, Bandits, and Bulldog, and one of them is not going to make it, right?
Yeah.
I think it is really hard to determine them.
Yeah.
I think if I had to put my money on a team right now to make mistakes, I'd probably say Bulldog, although I probably would need to double check the schedule a little bit. Bulldog have got Bandits, so obviously that's important. Bulldog have got Inari, so obviously that's important. And Bulldog have got Gucci. So Bulldog have either got a sink or swim, right? So they are either going to stay in the top 4 and prove that actually we deserve to be here, or they're going to be, hey, maybe these guys were not as good as the standings seem to indicate. So if I were to say right now, it'd be Absolve, Gucci, Inari, and Bandits as top 4. And then just below that, you got Bulldog and Broad. And then underneath that, you've got the relegation battle between Nuclear Vikings, Verdant, and Rise.
Okay.
So that's kind of how the standings I think are shaping up.
Because I know again we had Frisky say Inari aren't. He thinks they're fraud. I think he did use the term. Did he say frauds?
I said not frauds.
I think you said not frauds. I
frauds.
think Frisky say frauds.
Frisky did use the term frauds, not in like a fairly like casual sense. I don't think he's necessarily like trying to decry them as completely useless. I think it's just like if one of these is not like the other kind of thing. So if there has to be a weakest choice, it's that would be his choice.
Okay. Because I think they're pretty good. I think they're pretty good. I generally agree. I actually think Bulldog might make it over the Bandits. I just have there's something that
would be interesting.
There's something there. The thing about the Bandits is it gives me a vibe of like Clicker needs to click. I don't know if that was meant to be a pun. He needs to like I haven't seen them enough to really say if they have, and so it's kind of like he is playing. It gives me shadows of like their old roster with Lunkerfer, which did get finals, but they need to still have a cohesive identity around. Are they play like Clicker plays a lot like it's like Diana, then Jax, then it's Wukong, and then there's like other junglers below that. It's like let's say Diana isn't there. Let's say a coach decides not to give the Diana main Diana. What happens? Because he did look hands off.
He picks Jax.
He picks Jax, but is that good enough? Like, is that something where he puts a performance in? I don't know yet. So I'm not sold on the Bandits until I see a few more games. I think Bulldog might upset. I have like a feeling. I have a good feeling in my bones.
Definitely could.
For me, it's the biggest thing is that I have a lot of faith in Gabby. Okay, Gabby's my boy. I know JB's also very solid. So you got two very good carry players on that roster. And I think the biggest transition we've seen this last week was Loopy playing more tanks, being more of a weak sider. And I think if they can establish that as their core, if you have Gabby behind a big front line, I back that team to be strong. If Clicker can be the magic, the X factor alongside that, then I think that's where they can be really, really good. So the thing is, I've still got a lot of faith in that kind of Gabby, Loopy, JB core, and then Clicker's the X factor that is either boom or bust. And like against us in the first game on Vi, it was a bust. Second game on Diana, it was a boom. So we're gonna we'll see how it shapes up. But I think Clicker needs to just have a few more champs like the Diana, like the Jax that he's working on behind the scenes. Maybe in the theory, maybe something like that. That suddenly becomes a problem because the second he adds a third champion or a fourth champion, then like
that was always my concern when you get junglers come in like that is that you go
third champ has hit Clicker,
especially when your champ pool is a little bit more eclectic. Like obviously it's not like Diana Jax are like so wildly out there. It's not like playing Jungle Bard or something, but like he is someone that like when you start having those champs, like how do those fit within your draft in comp? And obviously they played the Diana Yasuo against you guys, but like he shouldn't really get the Diana just because it is something that he's going to know how to play. But the rest of them, like Jax is not I'm gonna slam and Jax and run the entire game kind of champion. He can do that, but he's not like, you're not talking about playing something that is fitting every team comp. Jack's own jungle often was seen as like a counter to like the Xin Zhaos and the Trundles, rather than it being like I'm taking Jack's blind every single game and I'm gonna stomp you with it. So I do, if he adds a couple more champs, he should be scary. He should be scary.
The thing is, when I look at the rest of the kind of schedule after that, for Bandits, they've got Bandits. They've got Bulldogs, obviously, which is, as we mentioned, like a big deciding game for top 4. But the Bandits have got Rise still coming, and they've got Broad coming. So maybe the Bandits have got a slightly easier run than Bulldogs, who really do have the top 3 teams still to face.
Yeah, like that top lane matchup of we've seen teams attempt to deal with Worm Soil, and we've seen Worm Soil completely steamroll entire rosters. If Loopy is being weak-sided more, we just need to make sure that we're not leaving him to get savaged by Wormsoul Olaf, and that we are in fact covering for this in some way, either in the draft or with Clicker, or we just need to, I think you need to keep Wormsoil from 1v9ing that game. I think that I do believe in Gabby and Kenny to comfortably lane out versus Yastrom and Magpie in the same way, and like build a really strong Gabby carry. We've seen that on multiple picks, like for Gabby so far, and I think JB is a way less volatile element than Ketsuo. Like, Faulty, props to him, had a very good series against Rise, like actually outperforming Ketsuo in the laning phase in a 1v1 scenario for basically most of the series, which we would not have expected. But that's just kind of the Ketsuo effect. Like, sometimes we just don't know what's going through his head, and sometimes he's completely 1v9ing, and that's just kind of how it seems to work with him. That's not really how JB plays. Like, JB is such a resilient mid laner, he does not tend to give away big advantages like that. And then I'm thinking, okay, so if Bulldog needs something to play through, it kind of has to be Wormsoul in my head. And if Bandits can neutralize that, I would probably take them in a 5v5 generally, because I think their team fighting is so strong and has been even from the
I
start of the
think
split.
if I directly compare both rosters, I think let's say we remove Wormsol Olaf from the equation somehow.
We'll assume he doesn't get it.
Use one of our bans somehow.
Yeah.
Then, like you said, you're confident with all the matchups. Then I think the X factor of all the matchups is Pivolge versus Clicker, because I think if Clicker can take over the game, and if Clicker can be like performing well against them, then I think Bandits will have it. But if Pivolge is just super solid and Clicker doesn't find the angles, or he's trying too much or trying too hard to carry, then that could be the downfall of Bandits. So we'll have to see how it goes.
I mean, there's quite a few exciting games coming up. I'm quite happy that we've got. Sometimes in a split, you get it where like you get towards the end and it's kind of all. We're not at the end yet, right? We're probably about halfway through. I'd say about halfway through. And like you get a lot of games you're like, this isn't a storyline game, but I think there's like so many. Again, we've got Nuclear Vikings Rise. You've then got like something like Broad have got a bunch of games to prove that they can actually get a 2-0. Then you've got like again Gucci and yourselves is like a big game. You've got like Bulldog versus Bandits. Like all of these really do end up deciding something within the playoff bracket. And I just said top four for at the moment for standings. Are we able to even look forward to playoffs at the moment? Because I was gonna say like, do we have like a? Do you think Broad might make it? You said like Broad will get it together for playoffs. If so, they're knocking someone out of your top four. Unless you think they're not going to make top four either.
No, I think Broad. I mean, I think Broad might benefit from a lower bracket run. You know, this is the thing. I think Broad might benefit from actually not getting into the top four, getting into lower bracket, getting a couple easy series under their belts, getting the ball rolling, and then having momentum going into the later stages. I think that could be the Broad formula for success. So even though I don't necessarily think they, well, I have to back my team against them, right? So I have to knock them down out of the top four here, probably mathematically.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. From what we've seen so far, I think that's what we would expect. And Broad needs more time. Okay, so before we move on, we can bring everyone's attention to an announcement that hopefully people will have seen if they're in the UKL server, which is the addition of the monthly cups. The return, somehow, Go for LOL returned. And under the guise of the monthly cups here, in partnership with Newell. So for anyone who is in the Discord in the server, and you can share this to your friends, to anyone who has a team that has at least 2, I think it's 2 out of 5 UK resident.
No, it's cannot contain more than 2 who are not residents. So you've got to have 3
so
UK.
Three UK residents.
And there's a change.
Into your stack.
There's a change to that as well, which is that the Emil, for example, is not eligible as a UK player. His LTR status is different for that. So there has to be there's a few differences there.
Yeah, it has to be residents, not necessarily LTR. But there is a full eligibility requirement in the Discord. And again, this is not like you don't have to be a UKL team. You don't have to you just have to have 3 people who live here. Basically, is kind of as simple as it gets. Get your team together, and you can play in these monthly events. A weekend-long double elimination tournament, I believe, is the format here. So it is. I saw someone describe it as Clash Tier 0, which I think is quite appropriate. But it does give you that extra kind of higher level of amateur into semi-pro, that bridging competition that we're trying to kind of just put more steps and build out the ecosystem a little bit more with Newell's assistance. So
Teatime Ramus is looking for team for this.
He's going to put his LFT out. It's going to be Ramus. I play Ramus. I love Ramus.
LFT for cup.
I mean, are we casting it, Trajan, or we could play in it? You know, we could
play in it. We'll show these guys how it's done.
Yeah,
that's what we need to do.
All the coaches or something.
Yeah, bro, I had Broad and friends on the ropes in the Scottish esports final, bro. They were running scared from me and J-Real, so. They and Gizmo as well.
I think the last time we ran it, when we had, would you call the Sunshine Showdown a cup? I would kind of call it that because it didn't really contribute to standings. We did have some runs that happened in that one, for example. So this is quite exciting.
Yeah, was that when D4?
That was when D4 gamers
the rise
knocked out Belfast Storm or knocked them to lower bracket. It was. We do get some interesting storylines coming out from this stuff. I hope that we do get some orgs maybe presenting teams as well. It is obviously a different residency requirement, so there maybe have to be some changes.
But you can just get 4 mates, meet the eligibility requirements, rock up and play for a chance at a £500 prize pool on this first instance. 21st, 22nd of March is the first monthly cup here in 2026 season. So thank you very much to Neil for helping us with putting that together, and we hope that as many people will get involved, get stuck in, because there's really no downside. It's just a fun thing to do on a weekend, and you can play for some bucks.
What I like about it is that you can
bring home.
choose to turn up with your full UKL squad, or you can choose to
Yeah.
turn up with your mates, and there's no, you know, if you that's nice that you can have a range of kind of how you want to approach it, and anyone can do what they like, really.
So what's Teatime saying is he's gonna take there's gonna be a resolve roster. He won't be coaching. He will be playing on another roster at the same time. He'll be like, leave you guys to deal with that one. I'm gonna go play Ramus.
We'll see what we do. I mean, they're already begging me to play, so.
Yeah. I mean, like we, you know, if there's people asking for, you know, let's get a caster analyst team. I think that the actual reality, the actual terrifying reality, is if there's a League Ops team, because Corpse and Mantle are kind of goated and smash like every arena community tournament that we did last year and the year before. So if we need to find some ringers for the UKL star squad,
you're gonna cast the finals though.
Oh no, I'm sure we
will find a way to do that. You know, it's so we don't necessarily have like, I think there's not a huge amount of pressure on putting a UKL. It's not going to be a Div 1 style production with desk and all this stuff, because obviously we want people to be able to rock up with anybody, and there's not too much meaningful desk analysis we can do on 5 randoms apart from looking at their op.ggs, which is fine. It's just not necessarily the way the tournament is phrased. However, with a full double limb bracket of data once that has played through, and potentially just with the fun of popping a stream up just to watch some League of Legends, UK League of Legends, and get more of a kind of casual vibe to it, we will have something going out, you know.
So what CJ's saying is he's LFT. He's LFT. If you want a Mel Smolder 2 trick
look,
on your team...
I taught Gabby everything he knows about Smolder, and I taught Beartree everything he knows about Mel. That's all I'm saying, right?
So if you want the 2 trick, he's there. He's free on that weekend. He's excited to actually play
the least favorite champions anyone's ever seen.
Yeah, as Rory B said on that one broadcast, he's surprised you have friends, I believe was the term.
So I might need to go LFT for this one, because nobody wants to play with me. Mel Smolder. So
exciting stuff. I think we can talk about Teatime. I think we can talk about you. You're here. Thank you for turning up as being so lovely. We could talk about your history and give you a bit of time to. Well, Trajan has got some stuff.
So as I kind of mentioned at the start, you have been around for a hot minute at this stage. Tell us a little bit about what was the first entry point into actual League esports. Was it like a uni trip? Was it just like spotting UKL on the client? Like, what was, you know? I mean, that's probably before that time.
Esports in general, so I went to university in America. I went to university in Los Angeles, and when I was out in the States, I was playing a little bit in amateur tournaments. They have a different scene out there, because you don't. You can either play for universities or you can play in amateur tournaments. So I did a lot of amateur tournaments back then. And then when I graduated uni, came back to the UK, and then I played one split in Arcadia with Sign Up Sprinter. This was a really unsuccessful split. We came like 8th or something. It was kind of fun. And kind of since then, like obviously, so coaching's always been my calling. I've always enjoyed coaching a lot more, but I still enjoy playing, and I like playing competitive, kind of like as a side, like a kind of for fun thing a little bit. And I have this a little bit of a, like, I always, obviously I'm British, so I have a soft spot for UKL. So even times when like I've been coaching a team, I was playing in a UKL team. Like I was coaching DMG, I was playing on Emirates. When I was coaching in NACL, I was playing on DMG UK. So I've kind of like, I've always had this like addiction to help struggling teams. Like DMG UK got demoted and kicked out Div 1, Div 2, and then they wanted to climb back up. So they would need a UK player. So decided to help them out. And then that team became absolved. And now I'm not coaching. I wasn't coaching a team, so I thought, okay, well, let's get absolved to the top. Let's finally win the UKEL. So that's kind of been my journey. So it's been kind of milling around the bottom, helping around with teams, and then this split was like, okay, let's do coaching. Let's get a proper team together. Let's win the league. So that's the plan.
Why has coaching always been your calling? Even from the start, that was the way you wanted to engage, kind of initially, as the primary thing. Why is coaching the way?
Yeah, I know my limitations as a player. I'm pretty.
He plays Ramus.
You can't do teach. I see.
If you can't, you teach. The thing is, I don't know. I just I always felt like I'm someone who, if I can't be the best, I'd rather not do it at all to some extent. and I've always felt that way, and I felt like with playing, it was obviously it's still important. Like I enjoy it. I do it fun mostly, and I enjoy playing competitive too. But like in terms of pushing to like those higher levels, is coaching was the path that I wanted to go down, and where I felt like I could kind of pursue that excellence, even though we're not there. We're trying. So yeah, that was kind of the way it went, and I just enjoy coaching. And there's nothing more satisfying than like seeing something that you kind of envision, or like the first 3 minutes of the game, and then seeing it execute and seeing it come into play can sometimes be more satisfying than playing it yourself, like actually having that kind of impact. And you can kind of impact everything. Like it doesn't have to be limited to your role. You can help everyone. You can create game plan, and you can also see players grow, and that's also just like a really rewarding thing when you see someone improve, and you see someone, or you're like your whole team like aces enemy, and instead of like flipping and trying to end the game, we just like reset and play tempo, and you're like, I taught them that was good. Good job, guys. Like we did it in the game. You know what I mean? It's like some rewarding feeling. Yeah. So I just love coaching.
How did you? So, because I coached on like Paragon back in the day, and there's like we don't talk about last year and there's a coaching I did there.
How do you
that
coach
didn't
players so they're actually good, Teatime?
No, that's
really
not. How dare you? How dare you? We did quite well at RPS. I'll have you know. That's not very nice. No, I was gonna say, how do you? Because and when I ended up going like LFT, I got offers from some teams in like Denmark, for example, and I didn't take them, but. What's the difference? So, like, obviously, there's like cultural differences between Denmark and the UK. But how do you view it in terms of like, as a coach, how do you deal with like you've obviously now coached the UK and you've coached it was DMG Denmark if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
what's the differences there? Was it like culturally? Was it also like how the league is perceived? Because in the UK, I feel like we have, for example, players come into this league who are like, these are so good. There's a few like Wicked on Belfast Storm, and then they seem to really struggle. Like, do they have a similar thing in Denmark, or is it very like? How do you find the differences between the two leagues?
I think Denmark has very much more concentration of power. I think if you look at least when I was there, it felt like there was a massive gap between the top and the middle. Whereas I think UKEL maybe is more spread out in terms of ability, but in terms of how the players are, it really just comes down to what roster you have. I think UK players are generally more willing to experiment, less argumentative sometimes. I think sometimes more European players can maybe have like really, really strong opinions about the game. Certainly for me, the biggest difference in terms of like coaching was when I went from NA to EU, because in NA, I feel like they have this like innate respect for coaches, and certainly in sports, like coaches are have a bit more identity. Whereas in EU, people kind of have bigger egos, I want to say, than maybe NA players. So they have more opinions, like strong opinions. Not that they're necessarily wrong, but it can sometimes be harder to get through to some players. One thing I will say about the roster that I'm coaching at the moment in Solved is that they're all very down to earth. I don't think, and that's been really like a blessing, because sometimes you have a player who's got a really, really, really strong opinion, and you just can't necessarily change their mind, and you just have to work around that opinion, which is really difficult, as you probably know, Rob. So yeah.
Do you, to kind of follow up on that, like when you were building this roster, or previous rosters you've obviously built with Absolved, how much do you personally take into account ability versus like cultural fit? Because obviously, because sometimes you have it where like you get a player come in, you're like, this guy's a beast, and then he's just, you recognize him as being uncoachable. Like, you're not going to get through, and you might have to just work with him. With like fit him in and get everyone else to work around it. Like for you, when you're picking up players, is it a case of I can mold this player to be better within a team environment, or is it a case where you go, this guy's really good, and then I'm going to fit everything else around that?
You asked me kind of jokingly, how do you make players good, right? And I think one of the biggest things, the biggest impact as a coach is not what you tell them in scrims, it's not what you tell them in review, it's the environment that you put them in. So if you put a player who's got massively strong opinions in a roster with loads of other players who've got massively strong opinions, you're going to have a disaster from the get-go. And I've got this kind of like, I like to think of it, when you're building a roster, you've got multiple things going on. You've got budgets, obviously. So in the sense that you know, maybe you have a financial budget in the higher leagues, but there's also another budget which I like to call the bullshit budget, and you've only got so much bullshit that you can have in a team, and you've got to kind of say, okay, well, this player's got these really strong opinions so much, so we need to balance that out with having a player who's maybe more moldable, more willing to take a step back, and kind of work around that. So it is super important to have a balanced roster in personality as well as like play styles as well. So it is one of the most fun things about coaching, can actually just be the roster building,
so
kind
fun.
of this doing this fantasy construction thing, and then seeing it work or falter, and you can see what works, what doesn't in the kind of building process.
Yeah, I think.
How do you go about judging character personality when you're assigning yourself a potential bullshit budget? Like when you're doing like tryouts, or like what kind of ways are you using to analyze players and get a sense of who they are before you lock them into a team?
I think the most telling moment can be when you're losing. I think that is the number one. Like when you're losing the game, how does the player respond? Do they like try to bring everyone up to find a way? Do they kind of say it's my way or the highway, or we're just gonna, or do they just concede and drop back and, you know, let it unfold? And it's kind of like how different players respond to losing, I think, could be really important in the game, after the game, and then what they do to kind of like change it, or things like that. So that's where like the biggest impact comes in. I think other things can just be like how communicative a player is. Like I always have this opinion that you can teach a player to be less communicative, but you cannot teach a player to be more communicative. So generally speaking, you want to have players that maybe speak more and then kind of dial them back to be appropriate, rather than having players who don't talk at all, or don't communicate very well at all, and having to dial them up is really hard compared to going the other way around. So things like that make a big difference when you're building a roster.
Because I mean, I remember when I was doing it, the hardest thing as well when you're like when you are roster building, there are some players who, especially when you have a lower budget, you often have to go for like more solo queue, or players that have much less competitive experience if you want to get that high level quality. And what I found is that sometimes speaking to some players, their expectation of a coach in a team environment is not what actually a coach does in a team environment. So they're sitting there going, they look at it like, what can this coach individually do for me? Like, is he going to sit down and teach me how to lane properly 1v1? And what you have to then point out to them is like, no, that isn't. There's a set amount of time, unless I'm being paid lots and lots of money, like an LEC coach maybe being paid. I don't have the time to do one-on-ones with you and also with every single other player all the time. Like, you going to have to understand, like, how do you I mean, don't want to give too much of insight into the inner workings of Resolve, for example, but like, how do you, as a coach, balance out sitting down with a player and like really getting, if there's like a real big struggle that they're maybe going through, how do you balance out that compared to giving enough time to the team? Like, obviously, there's like, you got to prep for draft. Like, obviously, some teams have analysts. I know you obviously got like spuds underneath you as well, and things like that. How, when you've maybe had to work for yourself, do you personally balance out like draft prep / like full team reviews versus one-on-ones and things like this?
Yeah, I think what will normally, I mean, so for individual player coaching, I think this is one of the biggest like misconceptions about coaches, is that I think it's kind of delusional for me to like go and try to teach Rhythm how to lay better on AD carry, because you know it's delusional. What can I really partake on him? I have opinions about draft, and like, yeah, everybody has general strong opinions, but at the end of the day, I have to balance, or sometimes, you know, sideline my opinion, because I can't, even if I think something's good, I'm not going to make my players play something that they don't want to play or they think is bad, because it's just more harmful, even if I might have a really strong opinion about something. So like a lot of it will be kind of conversations. I'll have draft prep of what I think we should do based off scouting. Then I'll bring it to players one-on-one or as a group, kind of go through, this is what I think we should do. What do you think? Or do you like this? What do you think? And then kind of adapt it all together to make something that works for all the players. Even if it's something that I think is slightly less optimal, maybe I had my original draft plan, it's something that all the players want to play, or all the players think is good for that moment. And that can be really, really important. But in terms of like dealing with things, like obviously you've got scrim time where you have everyone together, you have collective time, and that can be really important in review. You can have chats after review, pre-game chats before officials and stuff like that, and then it's just finding time outside of those to one-on-one with people, have chats, do 2v2s, 1v1s, top lane, mid, can be important for jungle, like talk about pathing stuff can be interesting. But yeah, I mean, it's just about finding a balance to do everything. It's never perfect, and I think that's the biggest thing, is that coaches who have massive egos and think this is my way or the highway can end up in a situation where they end up going nowhere because they don't work with their players, they end up working against them. Right?
You hear them, you hear about these when you go join a team or you speak to players, suddenly players be like, wow, coaches don't just tell me to be one cog more, like this is crazy, you know what I mean? Like I think sometimes you do hear this from players, and I think I really like the fact that you've pointed out that you do have to compromise with them. I think sometimes on stream casters, analysts, external sources, shall we say, they look at a draft and they go, why have they done this, why have they done that? But like a good team will have done prep behind it, and as you said, it's about making sure everyone is comfortable, because if you sit there and you do a draft where you're saying to Soimu, you're playing top Jana today, and he's like, I don't want to do that, and you're like, I think it's really good, it kind of, they aren't going to put their full heart into it, they aren't going to actually play it to the highest level. I like that you've actually pointed out, because I think sometimes we as analyst desks and viewers in general forget that they're like humans behind the screen that have actually had to compromise and come together. So I really like that you point that out.
I think it's one of those things where like a bad coach can often do more harm than good, because if the players are negotiating amongst themselves, sometimes those are the best results, right?
Yeah.
The coach's job is to kind of guide that and give it direction and give it structure, and so you know, you don't end up with 5 people playing what they want and then it's just completely unbalanced. You got 5 carry champs or something. You end up you have to balance, but it's about, you know, like you said, compromise in the sense that, you know, hey Soimu, maybe, you know, we've got to play all in this game so we can play this. That'll help us out for XYZ reason. Let's, you know, this is my idea. Let's try it in scrims. If you don't like it, we can revisit it. You know, that kind of thing where you work on it, you build up to it. You don't just dictate to them, hey, you're going to play on every game, and this is how it's going to be. Even though it might look like that, it's not the case. You know, there's compromise and agreement behind it. You know.
Yeah. In at like the UKL, the kind of deep into the ERL system, you do see a lot of different approaches to coaching. You can see teams with no coaches who are just 5 teams of dudes. You can see teams that even like some kind of big org, sometimes they won't have a coach. Sometimes there'll be one, sometimes there'll be a head coach, an analyst, sometimes there'll be 3 coaching staff. With such a variability kind of at this level as to different teams' approaches to coaching, obviously kind of Absolved, you have yourself and you've got Spuds on as like an assistant coach / analyst kind of position.
Yeah.
What do you think is kind of the best way to get the most out of having an additional resource at this level? Because you say like a lot of it is compromise, a lot of it is balancing time. People aren't full-time doing this. Normally people have other kind of demands on them in some way. How do you get the most out of having that extra whole person kind of when some teams might not necessarily have even one to improve the team?
Yeah, I think it's about making resources, like we've got sheets and stuff, like pulling drafts, saying, okay, these are their priorities, these are what they pick. You know, there's that kind of data mining that goes into the decisions as well. Like, hey, you know, they are picking these champs early, or they've picked this champ X many times, or, you know, this kind of like, this guy's got a 3rd account here that he's played 50 games of this in the last week. Yeah. You know, there's kind of that data mining stuff that takes time and effort. Sometimes if you are a coach and you let that stuff slip, or you don't catch everything, and then your decisions end up being bad. So it helps to have an extra set of eyes on everything, because if there is something that's missed, they pick it up, and that's really helpful. And like, you know, if I'm not available for a scrim set, we don't have to cancel the scrim block because I've got people there who can step in. Even Waterboy Bach is giving us some assistance sometimes for the scrim days when I'm not there, right? And he's got a lot of authority and experience. So there's definitely, for us, it's working. I think, like I said, you have to kind of, it's always about balance. So you have to have balance. You can't have too many cooks. I think that's also a problem some teams have. Too many chefs in the kitchen. So it's all about balance, really, and just finding your role and finding what helps best.
I feel just not justifies maybe the wrong thing. Like obviously I've dropped out from coaching now, but it's kind of I as a coach, I didn't find myself talking to too many other coaches within the scene because often you're competing. So it's nice to actually hear that I wasn't completely bullshitting the entire time while I was doing it. I was like, thank God, because so many players were like, "Oh my God, you like listen to me," and like you're not sitting there demanding I like 1-2 cog Lulu or like what is going on like this. I thought coaches just sort of sat there and pretended that they did things, and I'm like, this is so nice. I feel vindicated. This is very very therapeutic for me. So
it's also like if you're a coach that has really, really, really strong opinions, maybe you build a roster that has no opinions whatsoever.
Yeah.
And maybe that's how you want to work. And if that's how you want to work, that's how you want to work. Like I allow players to have a few thoughts of their own. Maybe not. No, they do.
They're allowed to have allocation of thoughts.
So there's a kind of budget for that too. It's like how much of a dictator do you want to be as a coach?
Yeah.
And when you build your roster, how malleable are they going to be to your opinions? And if you bring in people with super strong opinions, maybe as a coach, you're going to have to work around that a little bit more, or you could just try and power through with your ideas and say, my way or the highway, and then they just have to submit. But that generally is harder, right? So you got to figure it out. You got to find the middle ground.
God, I also found myself having to be an emotional leader, at least on, I would say, the Paragon roster that I sort of had to coach. There was a lot of moments where you have to sit there and mentally reset. You know, you go through a series of bad losses, or you're in a series, and it's like one loss that's like, we should never lose this game. What the hell's gone on? Do you find yourself? Obviously, you're at the top of the table right now, so it's kind of hard to say when you lose because you've lost once in a best of two. So, do you find yourself like how do you present yourself as like an emotional leader? Because sometimes you have players in the game that do that, and sometimes you as a coach have to step in and be like, right, guys, we know we're better here. We know that we should be taking them to task. Like, this is not us. Like, how are we going to make sure that going forward we're not going to make the mistakes that we do? How do you deal with that? Because you'll be dealing with a lot of different ages as well in your players, I'm assuming. Like, I think there's going to be always a range when you're coaching of like, there'll be a 17-year, I know, like, for example, on Bandits, Clicker's like 17, and then you have players that come into the league that are like still playing at 30. So like, how are you finding balancing that kind of emotional baggage as well as that dynamic of age difference?
Yeah, I mean, everyone responds differently all the time, right? I think, I always think back to when we were playing in NACL qualifiers with Apex Mission Possible going into Game 5, gave a little speech about how much I've enjoyed coaching you guys, regardless of outcome, blah blah blah. And something like that can just really bring the team together, and you can it can be really positive. Just to like kind of have that one moment where you can just see the difference in like it levels everyone out going into the game. Like everyone's intense going into Game 5 and just like pulling everyone back a little bit, saying, okay, this is the situation. Now we're here. Enjoy it, have fun, that kind of thing. Reset everyone's mental. So you could do speeches like that work. Sometimes some players respond more to behind the scenes chats, like, "Hey, I noticed today you weren't happy with the scrim block or whatever, so we got to talk about it." So things like that, and every player responds differently. It's part of your job as a coach to figure out how each player responds to stuff, like what you need to do for each individual. And it's like you said, Rob, it's like being a therapist.
It genuinely
how much you know about League isn't the only
it really isn't. It is like a man management, like emotional, like you've got to sit there and take their emotional baggage. You message them and they're like, actually, this happened to me today. Like my my girlfriend broke up with me or something, and you're like, oh my God, I've got to like mentally reset my top laner before the next official because the girlfriend cheated on him or something. Like it is actually that level. It's I think a lot of people forget that. I think a lot of people forget that.
It's why I love coaching too.
Yeah.
It's part of the job, and it's like a bit that people kind of don't respect so much. But it is also the fun. It's like, you've all played Football Manager. You get the pop up that says your player's had X, Y, Z happen to him at IRL, and now he's like more tired going into the game or something, whatever it is on FIFA. So yeah, that stuff is real. It happens, and you have to deal with it, and you have to navigate it, right?
I just have one last question, and then Rob, obviously, if any more, you can go crazy. But I think that as a small thought experiment, if as you've said, you'd love to help a struggling team, right? You see them lost lambs in the wilderness, and you just want to give them a hug and just give them a chance, right? Say you are put into a team in the UKL, why not? That's like 8th or 9th in the standings. They're struggling. Their drafts are changing. Players are every which way. They're posting suspicious things on Twitter. You get pulled in to coach this team to try and turn a season around. What is the first thing that you're going to try and solve? What do you think is the most important, highest value thing you can do to try and turn like a struggling team around as a coach?
It's a good question. I think that it's difficult to answer because there's always differences, right? But a general formula, I think, that is often slept on is so many teams, they'll go into review and they'll look at what we did wrong and how we can fix it. What we did wrong and how we can fix it. I think the biggest thing for a struggling team is what are the things we can do well, and how can we do that over and over and over again and ignore or cover up the mistakes by doing that thing really well. And like focusing on your strength is the biggest thing. So if you're a team right now that maybe you're struggling, or whatever, figure out what you're good at and really nail on that one. Don't focus so much on, oh, we need to fix this and we need to fix this and we need to fix this, because I promise you there's so many things you can't fix at all. So what are you good at, and get that nailed, level that up to be a problem for enemy team to deal with, and you'll find that your problems then become more manageable because you've got the strength to build on.
I think we saw that. Go back to the Nuclear Vikings discussion. I think we saw that idea. Shout out Coach Heike. I think came into fruition. Up the Heike. I think that came into fruition in that game versus Verdant, where I think their weakness would have been their bot lane. They pick Ashe Seraphine early, which is a solid bot lane duo, and they're doing what you were saying. Their strength was Josh Kang, and they really played through him. And I think it is something that we did see. I did have a question, but I forgot it.
They gave all draft resources to the top side, right?
Yeah.
They just pick out Seraphine 1-2, and they say, okay, now everything goes into top side. We've got all the draft resources for top side. Bot lane, if you can't win, it's okay, because whatever, we picked you 1-2. It's not your job. You just have to go even. You have to do the best you can. How do we win through top? How do we win through mid jungle? And Nuclear Vikings is a good example, right?
Yeah, great example.
Yeah, just plaster over the bot lane, super obnoxious high floor duo. Here you go, right? Yeah. You can at least not lose, right? At the very least, you can spam waves, you can win, and they started getting 2v2 kills as well. We actually saw them kind of elevate themselves a little bit in that series, which was cool to see. And then you can focus on that top side, which has been inches away from winning games for the whole split, basically. So
I do have one more question. I've remembered it now. My memory is not always that good in my old age. So for yourself, obviously you're coaching Absolve now. I don't know what you do for work in your personal life, or anything about your personal life, and you don't have to disclose that here. However, where do you view yourself within coaching, going forward? Is this one of these things so for me, I never looked at it as I loved coaching and I love casting, but I'm not going to sit there and assume I can just push and push and push and make it happen. Is coaching something where you're going to keep doing it as long as you can as a side activity, or is it something where you're going, okay, I'm going to make Absolve work, and then I'm going to LFL. I'm going all the way up there. How do you view it personally for yourself as a progression, or is it something that you just love and you're going to do, and if something happens, it happens?
Yeah, I think more the latter. I think if something happens, it happens. It's great. I've got a job in real life, believe it or not. And not all my eggs are in the coaching basket, but I like coaching, and while I can still do it, while I can still find time for it, I'm gonna keep doing it and give it my all. And if something happens, it happens. And if it gets to, God forbid, we go to the LEC or something, that would be nice. But it's more of a hobby, and it's something I enjoy. And like I said, it's super rewarding at times,
Yeah.
And that makes it all worthwhile.
I think
great. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Teatime, for jumping on, discussing the league and your journey with us. It's always great to get a deep dive into coaching. I think at this level, people don't necessarily understand what coaching is. People can see coaches on the LEC stage. It's just people in suits with notebooks standing behind the players and being blamed for drafts. But a lot of the time, I think when we go down into this, as you say, deep into the ERLs, it's so different for so many people's approach, players react to it, how kind of fans perceive it. I think it's good to get a long conversation about what your approach is, especially as someone who is currently first in the league. Whatever you're doing, it's probably pretty good. It's probably at least partially right, I think we can say. With Absolve. So thank you so much for joining us. Thank you everybody for watching as usual on the Saturday show. Rob, is there anything else you want to shout out?
I was going to say, does Teatime have anyone he wants to shout out? This is his space. Are there anyone? It could be. I say anyone. It can be the Lord and Savior himself if you want to. You can shout out whoever you want. What you want to give a voice?
I want to shout out my girlfriend for putting up with my habits of of gaming. She's so supportive of me. I've got to match my team's playing. I got to scrim and. She's allowing me to do it.
Yes, honey. Yes, honey. Go play your Chinese children's video game. Go enjoy yourself.
Yeah. Exactly. No, but for real, my team as well. Obviously, all my players are doing fantastic. They need to keep improving, and we'll keep improving and getting better and hitting the top. So, but yeah.
Excellent. Okay, for everyone, thank you for watching. You can find us on socials at the UKEL. There's a link tree in there to all of our platforms. You can join the Discord. You can take a look at those monthly cups we mentioned if you want to get some friends together and play. get some structured competition in the UKL ecosystem with a prize pool on offer as well. Potentially just a chance to get, clapped up and down the rift by Absolved or whatever if they rock up, or Teatime Ramos. You too can lose to Teatime Ramos if you just sign up for March 21st, 22nd. So pay attention to that, and we'll be back on usual times, Mondays and Thursdays, as the regular season continues.
What game is on Monday? What game is on Monday? Before we go, what game is on Monday? Let's shout out who's playing. I didn't see.
Ooh.
We should probably say Monday, what to come back for.
First one I think is Bandits and Good Chi.
Ooh.
Which is kind of hot because we need more on-stream data for them, because we say we're waiting to see how both of these teams kind of arrive. And now that Absolved is streaking off into the distance, both of these teams would love to catch them up. So that's going to be a very exciting game to see.
And then Thursday is Bandits Broad and Absolved Good Chi and Rise and Ari. What an incredible day on Thursday!
Bangers
every game
all the way up and down.
Every game's a banger. Don't miss it. You know.
Yeah.
Do not miss it. And with that, have a good rest of your Saturday, rest of your weekend, everybody. And we will see you on Monday for more UKL action.
Bye.